Hello, everybody, and welcome to PublishDrive Author Hour. I'm Danica Favorite. I'm the community manager at PublishDrive. And today I'm excited to have a guest with us, Lindsay Jones from DropCap. She and I met back a few months ago at the IBPA conference, and I know we've crossed paths multiple times before that. So it's really exciting to have somebody come in and talk to us about foreign rights and things like that you may not have considered for your author business. And so I'm excited to get to have an expert with us today. So Lindsay, why don't you start out by telling us about yourself and telling us something about DropCap?
Yeah, I would love to. So my background is actually in self-publishing. So I started in the self-publishing industry in about 2010. And I started DropCap in 2018 because as someone working on the production side in publishing for independent authors, we realized that there were no resources whatsoever to help these authors get their books licensed into foreign rights. We would occasionally get an inquiry from a publisher in China or Korea, and even on the publisher side, we had no idea what to do with it. So we ended up, that company was sold in 2026. We ended up connecting with my co-founder and CSO, Allison Olson, who ran her own rights agency for over 15 years and has been in rights licensing for her entire career. She used to work at Llewellyn. She's traveled all over the world, very experienced with building relationships for rights licensing, and she was having a lot of success with licensing the books of independent authors and wanted to find a way that she could scale that. Because as a one-woman show, she could only have maybe 12 clients at a time, and then she was kind of capped out. So with DropCap, we thought, how can we bring a rights licensing program to more independent authors? Because there's really no pathway if you don't already know the people who are doing the rights licensing. So that's why we created DropCap. It's a place where authors and small publishers can list their books on our platform, and we have over 2,500 foreign rights, international rights buyers that use our platform to find books that they want to license. We have an agency side of the business as well that can help with actually negotiating the deals and collecting royalties and that kind of process side of it as well.
Wow. Yeah, that is great, because I don't think a lot of indie authors even know about this whole other area of the business. So can you tell us what subsidiary rights are and how does DropCap work with all of that?
Yeah, so subsidiary rights, or a lot of times we'll just say sub rights, are rights that as the copyright holder of your book, you own and control and can monetize. So the ones that we primarily work with are translation rights. And that's where you're giving permission for a publisher in a specific territory to take your work, translate it, and then sell it for a finite amount of time. So typically a rights license is 5 to 7 years, and you're kind of defining when and where and who is allowed to use those rights. And then you're being paid typically an upfront advance and then royalties on sales of the foreign edition. There's a lot of other different types of sub rights as well. Obviously, there's film and TV. There's audiobook rights. So a lot of times we will license the foreign rights for a print edition and also bundle in audio in whatever language is being licensed as well. We also do audio licensing for English rights. So if you're an author who has not created an audiobook, that's an option where you can have your book licensed to an audio publisher and they take on the expense to create the book, and then you're paid a percentage of royalties. And then there's a lot of other types of sub rights, like we see book club editions. Like if you ever pick up a book and it's like, oh, this is the Reese Witherspoon book club edition, that's a whole separate license for the same book. So there's a lot of ways, if you're having traction with the first edition of your book, you can then monetize it into other languages and other formats.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you mentioned film rights. Do you work with film rights, or is that somebody different?
We do. We're honestly, we're just kind of getting started on our own film rights journey. So we're learning a lot there. But we have done some film options, and that film is similar but different. So typically with film, a book is optioned first,
Mm-hmm.
and then it needs to be picked up by a studio to actually create the movie or the TV show. So it's kind of a two-step process that, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about yet. But we have a wonderful agent, Monica, based in New York City, who has taken on that role for us and has begun working with more potential film deals.
That's great. That's great. So I know a lot of this, you're talking about how you can actually do this for the authors. When does it make sense for an author to get you involved as opposed to just doing some of this on their own?
Yeah, well, rights are very difficult to do on your own, but there's ways that you can set yourself up for success. And we like to see books come to us when they're just about to be published. So kind of the same time where you might be thinking about putting your book on NetGalley or whatever other pre-marketing activities you're doing. You're sending ARCs out to get any sort of endorsements. That's a good time to also start thinking about foreign rights or any other type of rights licensing, because there's always a little bit of buzz around a book when it first comes out. That being said, we have seen a lot more interest in backlist as well, especially, as economies are shifting and we don't really know what's going to go on worldwide. We have seen a solid interest in books that have a proven track record. So as an author, the best thing you can do for your rights licensing journey is to work on your domestic marketing. So building traction here in the US, whether that is equating to sales is not always as important as just showing that you have an audience. So having those reviews, applying for book awards, getting your book in front of people if you're on social media, showing that you have a dedicated readership here in the US. And then also you as an author, what your expertise, what your background is. Those are the types of things that our rights buyers are looking at, more so than just raw sale numbers. Obviously, sales numbers are helpful, but they're really trying to find the whole big picture for each book, because for them, each book is an investment. They want to know that the authors, this is their passion, this is their career, they have a background, and then they want to see that they're engaging with their readership, and that helps them say, hey, this is something special that I can't get at home. I'm going to license it from English language.
Yeah. So at what point in an author's career should they start looking at rights licensing? Like if someone's just got one book out, or they've got 10 books out, or is there a number?
There really isn't a number, because I've seen success at all different levels. I've seen success for authors that just have one book and then they go on to write more. And I've had authors come to us who already have written a series and they see success with multiple books in the series being licensed. There are certain genres that do really well in a series. So a lot of like fantasy romance, we see interest from publishers wanting to license a series of those books, because that really, you have a kind of a built-in audience for each release. We also see with children's books, especially like social emotional learning type books, when there's a series that deals with different emotions, for example, or behavioral challenges, we see those types of books being licensed kind of all at once. But, we have recently started working with the author, Steve Peck, who wrote A Short Stay in Hell, which has been gaining a lot of popularity. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I believe that is his only book. He may have a couple others that really didn't get the same type of recognition that he's seeing with A Short Stay in Hell. But, he came to us. We met the US publisher at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and we started showing the book to our rights buyers, and it's really taken off. So there's really no like one pathway for every author. It's just always different.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So you were mentioning translations and selling translation rights. How big is that translation market, and which markets are you seeing the most growth in?
Yeah, the actual size of the translation market is really hard for us to measure. I've attempted to a couple times, and I don't even want to throw out a number because I feel like it wouldn't
Mhm.
be accurate. But we do know, we estimate that somewhere between 20 and 30% of books that are being sold globally are coming from translations. And the direction that most translations flow from are English into other languages.
Okay.
In the US and the UK, we have a really mature publishing market. So we have a lot of authors that produce a lot of books, and markets like China and India are up and coming. We license into those markets a lot because they have huge populations and not as developed of of their own publishing industry. So we see that there's so much demand for books that there's a lot of licensing going on to just keep up and like allow publishers to continue filling out their lists. Those books are mainly coming from English language, though I think French is the next highest translated from language after English.
Okay. Yeah. Are there what languages seem to be the more popular ones to translate into right now?
Yeah, we do a lot of translations from, I mean, we don't do the translations, we do a lot of licensing into China and Korea. And India is interesting because we license into India, but it doesn't typically get translated. It gets published as an English reprint edition,
Oh,
which is
interesting.
an interesting dynamic as well, because it's too expensive to export a book and for people who are local to India to buy that book. When it's done as a reprint edition, it can be sold in brick and mortar bookstores in India for $2. And that is just on an affordability scale what someone in India is able to pay. So we've found that a lot of authors are really successful having that specific English Indian edition.
Yeah, it's interesting that they are buying them in English in India.
Yeah, that's really widely read. We do a lot of licensing into Latin America, and then a good amount of licensing into Europe as well. So Germany, France, Italian, Spanish, and then we also kind of, on occasion, I'll say, license from English into English, just because the publisher or the author wants that. They've been offered a deal and they want that expanded opportunity to reach more readers. So, for example, we work with the book of Azrael, which is a really popular romantasy book. It's part of the whole series, and that's an example of where the author started with a small publisher here in the U.S., like a micro press basically, and we then licensed their English rights, English U.S. rights to Kensington, which is they're not quite in the big five, but they're one of the big.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really, those types of opportunities are really fun to see for our authors because they're, you're giving up a little bit of control because you're not the one that is doing it all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But the opportunity that you have to reach so many more readers is just wonderful to see. So that's been a successful pathway we've seen as well.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I was thinking about, and one of the questions is, what happens if an author gets an unsolicited offer from a foreign publisher out of the blue? How do you vet that? If some especially now we see all of these internet scams and things where you get email from some publisher and it turns out to be a scam. How would you suggest an author vet that?
Yeah, so I would, a couple things. Always go look at the website. We do occasionally get offers from publishers that we've never worked with, though we've worked with so many that it's few and far between. But the first thing I would do is go look at the website, and you can use, if you're using Chrome or any type of web browser, you can translate it if it's not in your language, and get a feel for if the website looks legitimate. What I've seen sometimes is that agents or editors will even use like a Gmail address, so it seems kind of scammy. But then if you try to look them up on LinkedIn or you try to find their website, it actually is a legitimate publisher. So you can kind of do a little bit of investigation that way. But what I always recommend for authors who receive an offer is to go find an agent. And I would love for it to be DropCap. It doesn't have to be, but it's protection for you. One, because they're going to be able to vet that publisher. Even if they don't know them, they'll go talk to other publishers or agents in that country and get references, because they have other contacts in those territories. And then when it comes to actually negotiating an offer, you're always going to get a better deal if you're working through an agent, because the agent is your advocate. They have your best interests in mind. They get paid based off of what you get paid. So they're going to know what the market norms are for advances and royalty rates. And then they're always going to make sure that there's protections in the license agreement that you sign that make sure your rights revert back to you under certain circumstances. So for example, you might see if it doesn't sell a certain number of copies, the rights can revert back to the author. That way, or that the publisher has to publish within a certain number of months. That way they can't just buy the rights and sit on it and not actually publish it, and then you've lost out on that market. So what I've seen with publisher contracts that are going directly to authors, and I don't think it's meant to be predatory, they're trying to get the best deal for themselves.
Right,
so
right.
It's just like you would get a lawyer or you'd have an agent to sell a house. You should have a rights agent to handle your contracts for you if you want kind of like the best outcome.
Yeah, yeah. So what should people be looking for in these contracts, or things that they should be considering and hopefully discussing with their agent? But if not, what are the other things what are the things to be looking for?
Well, the two big things are the advance. So that's the money that the publisher is going to pay you up front just for licensing the work. And that advance is paid off against future royalties. So then as the book sells, you're going to what's called earn through the advance. That means for every copy sold, once you kind of pay back the publisher for that advance amount, then you start earning on each sale. So they're just saying, we're gonna assume the sales are gonna be good. We're gonna pay you this amount up front. And then once the book has performed to that level, then you'll start getting paid on every copy sold. And the advance varies wildly based on the market. So smaller markets are going to pay a smaller advance. More developed markets are going to pay larger advance. Fiction, if there's a lot of demand, or sometimes we have auctions where there's a lot of competition for certain books, the price is going to go way up. English is going to be, more lucrative than a translation into a smaller market. So there's a lot of variables that go into what a reasonable or fair advance is, and having someone who knows those markets will help navigate and make sure that it's fair and that you're getting the most you can get. They can hold auctions because they have multiple contacts, that sort of thing. The other thing I would look at is the royalty rate, and making sure that there's a royalty escalator. So that's where if you start at maybe a 6 or 7% royalty rate for each copy sold, once you sell through maybe 10,000 copies, that royalty rate gets higher. So the more successful you are, the better you get paid. So having an escalator from like 7 to 10% based on number of copies sold, I think is very fair. And we build that into a lot of our contracts, again, depending on the market, that kind of dictates the rates. And then the other thing I'd look at is the term. So I mentioned that a lot of licenses are 5 to 7 year term. I have seen ones that are as high as 10. I like to keep ours at around 5 years, unless there's, some really important reason why it needs to be longer. And the reason for that is, one, if it's not working out, we can go find a different publisher to license it to after 5 years. Like maybe the publisher isn't performing as well as expected. Or if it is doing really well, we can actually renew the contract after 5 years. And as an author, you get a refresher advance. Like they pay another advance, and then the contract is good for another 5 years. So it just gives you a kind of a touch point to make sure that everything is still working well for both parties.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like there are a lot of moving variables in this. And so it really does help to have that expert there guiding you through that process. How does that process work? How does the rights agent work from signing the author to pitching the publishers and then working through that whole contract process?
Yeah, so we're a little bit unique in that we've built a fully automated system that helps support our pitching efforts. So this is kind of going back to what I talked about, where when Allison, my co-founder, was on her own, she could only have about 12 clients. We want to be able to offer more authors the opportunity to be in front of rights buyers. And we also want our rights buyers to have an easy way to have books presented to them that fit their interests. So for us, we built a platform where once your book is listed on the platform, we have an algorithm that is matching it to rights buyers based on their genre buying preferences, their past buying habits, and then what interactions have happened with that book. So it's a really sophisticated way to put the books in front of the right people so that you have the highest chance of success. So rather than, showing each potential rights buyer our entire catalog, we're saying these books are the best fit for you. And it's just a much more targeted way to connect the books to the buyers. So that's kind of the first step in how we present books. That would be if you start a membership with DropCap, we would put you into this this platform where we're doing that one-to-one matching. And then the next layer is with our rights agents. So a big part of what they do is attend international book fairs throughout the year. And that's really important for the rights industry because sales are made by maintaining face-to-face relationships. So both Allison and our rights director, Monica, have been in the industry for over 30 years. So they know many of the people that they sit down and meet with, though we always love to bring in new publishers as well. And at these book fairs, Frankfurt, for example, in October, and then we have London Book Fair in March. We also go to Bologna, Guadalajara. We have a Chinese team that goes to the Beijing and the Shanghai book fairs. So these are our chances to sit down. It's quick 30-minute meetings back to back, usually over the course of 3 to 4 days for 12 hours a day. Like we fit it all into a short amount of time. And we have the books on display with us. So we're doing a full exhibit where we can take the books down from the shelves and present them to the people that we're meeting with. And we find that they're able to connect with the books so much more deeply because they're in front of them rather than just on a screen. So we use, kind of the support of our software throughout the year to kind of prime things. Then we maintain the actual person-to-person connection at these touch points throughout the year at the book fairs.
Yeah. I think as a reader, there's just no better feeling than that book actually in your hands to get excited about what is coming and what the books are. What do you find when you're going to these different book fairs? What are they like, and how are they helping the authors besides that face-to-face time?
Yeah, the book fairs are, for the most part, usually at least the first few days, are totally B2B. So it's a time for the entire industry, the entire publishing industry, to come together and understand what is trending, understand, what the political and economic climate is in different areas of the world that may affect the industry. And it's a chance for us to just buy and sell. We work with rights, but people are there for distribution and all different types of spheres within the publishing industry. And it's very few readers, at least for usually the first few days of each fair. It's more focused just on like the business of book selling.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And with the authors and all of the different rights, and where DropCap is working, are you actually how do you act as the author's agent, and how is that different from working with a traditional agent?
Yeah, so I would say that we have a traditional agency within our business. So when you work with DropCap, when you're starting off with us, it's completely different from anything that anyone else is doing, because our goal, our mission is to give you access. So we want to be able to take your books and put them in front of the right people and see if we can get traction and interest through those efforts. So it's much more on the side of a marketing or promotional service, but to rights buyers instead of to readers, obviously. So that's where we differ, and we're not really a traditional agency at all. But then what we find is that that's not enough. There needs to be some support where, okay, I have a deal, I have interest, what do I do now? So that's where you have the option of signing with us for representation, and then our agents will take over negotiating the deals. We'll handle kind of the end-to-end licensing process, the collection and payment of royalties, all of that stuff that a traditional agency would do. We can do that too. It's just kind of like within the larger picture of
Right.
everyone to be able to at least have, the opportunity to have their books in front of rights buyers.
Yeah, and how many agents are working with you at DropCap?
We have 3 now.
Oh, great.
Our contract manager, Sophia, actually just started transitioning into a role as an associate agent. So they're split up based on the territories that they represent. So, Allison represents Spanish and certain other territories. Monica works Germany, Japan, and Sophia is, I believe, doing Turkish and Arabic. And then we have, a dozen other 20 to 30 other languages that we work with as well.
Yeah. And how many rights buyers do you have in your network, and how does that matching with those rights buyers work?
Yeah, so we have over 2,500 rights buyers in our network. And they have accounts within our platform as well, just like our authors and publishers can log in to list their books, and they can check their activity and see all of the information about what's going on with their book. Our rights buyers have accounts as well, and theirs looks completely different, because what we're doing through their account is presenting books and curating a selection for them that we think will be of interest. That's also where our contracts get signed. So we know the language, the country, the organization for every single rights buyer that we work with is all kept track of within our proprietary platform. And that number, I mean, we've built that up over time, but really that's all thanks to Allison and Monica, because they've been in this industry and they maintain those relationships, and they know everyone, which is wonderful.
Yeah. So somebody who doesn't have any experience with this, like any of the authors, I mean, I'll count myself in there, as somebody who's never even explored this as a possibility. What's the realistic first step for an author to look into seeing if this is a possibility for them, or what would work for them, and what their next steps would be?
Yeah. So we actually, that is the number one question that we get. So we actually created a way to answer that question. We offer an agent evaluation service. It's a $35 service. It's really just to give you the answer to, is my book a good fit? Should I move forward with pursuing rights? So what we do is we review your book. I should say we evaluate your book. We're not giving a review. We evaluate your book across 8 different criteria. that we've identified are kind of the most important ones for international licensing success. So we're looking at what is the target audience for this book? Is the cover, the interior, are they designed to a professional level? Is there competitive differentiation, or is this a really crowded genre and it's going to be more difficult to get licenses? Is it on the other end where it's too niche and it's going to be difficult to get licenses? So we look at all of those things, and it gets compiled into a rights readiness score. It sounds all fancy, but really it's just each criteria. One of our agents writes, just a few notes about their thoughts on how the book might perform. So we're trying to assess the potential in a way that is really transparent. And we will say, if we don't think it will be a good fit for licensing, we will say that, and we will say, here's what you need to do before you consider moving forward. And sometimes that's things like you just need to build your audience a little bit more, or maybe you have an audience, but you're not really showing that well enough. You need to do more to show how your audience is interacting with your book, whether that's through social media accounts or whatnot. So it's a really good first step for understanding if the book is a good fit, or if you have things to work on and what they are. Some books are just never going to be a good fit because they're too U.S. centric. So, for example, books that are dealing with U.S. education system, U.S. healthcare system, those are really specific to our country, and they just don't travel as well. So some of that is common sense, but some of it is like, I don't know, you tell me. So that's why we started doing the evaluations.
Yeah, I think that's really good for people to think about because, I know, for example, I have some trad pub books with Harlequin, and my books sell really well in the US and Australia, but I've never been picked up by a foreign market because they're just not suited to that market. And so I think it's important for people to understand that the book has to be suited to a particular market as opposed to just because it's a good book in the US. And so you have mentioned a couple times the size of an audience. What are you looking for in an author's audience and their audience size?
Yeah, I think more so than sheer numbers, because obviously it's easy to gauge an audience size if they have a big following on TikTok or Instagram. I think when we put a book through our evaluation, we have kind of parameters for what we consider like small, medium, or large. But more so I want to see that there's some sort of engagement. So whether that is, a really well-designed website with all of your social media links there, you have a newsletter, you maybe have events where we see that you're appearing in person at events, maybe you're connecting with libraries. It's more about like a show don't tell, like show us that you're doing this work domestically to get your book in front of the people that are going to read it. If you list your book and it's like, oh, well, it's on Amazon, that doesn't really show us the audience potential. So I would say more so than like a specific number or size or social media following, it's being able to demonstrate that you're connecting to people rather than just kind of putting your book out there and hoping that someone buys it.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily saying, okay, you have to have 10,000 followers.
Right.
It's more, do you have an engaged audience of followers?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those people are not going to be the same people that buy the book in a foreign language. So it really is just, we're trying to measure, what sort of traction there might be.
Yeah. And you mentioned like things that are more US centric or not necessarily doing as well. Are there books and genres that they're really hungry for out in the foreign rights market?
Yeah, so on the fiction side, romantasy continues to do really well, like romance fantasy. There's always interest in thrillers and sci-fi, but that's a more crowded market. So there has to be something really like differentiating about the book. It helps if you've won awards or if you have endorsements from other authors, or a good foreword by someone who's more well known. That can be a really helpful way to kind of differentiate the book in a crowded genre. And I would say on the fiction side, I'm seeing less interest in like historical fiction. There was kind of like a little boom from Bridgerton, and now that's like a little, we just don't see a lot of the historical. And fantasy is just a very crowded market as well. There's a lot of people who want to write fantasy, and we see a lot of competition there. So that again has to be really differentiated in a special way to catch the attention. If it's Harry Potter-esque, that's going to be hard to sell because there's so many books like that. On the nonfiction side, especially from the US, there's a lot of interest in business, career, leadership, self-help, mind, body, spirit, and then ones that are kind of a crossover of all of those. There's a lot of books that are like, here's my personal experience in business and in my career, and I'm going to help you do the same thing. Like those types of like self-help / business books do really well. And like I said, mind, body, spirit. So books that are self-help and maybe have a little bit of a spiritual angle, those can do really well. We've had a lot of success with books about like anxiety and overthinking and that sort of thing. So nonfiction, like I mentioned, is typically lower advanced than fiction, but can sometimes be easier to license because there's a lot of demand for those types of books in like the Asian markets, and we're just, the US is looked at kind of as like the place to get those types of books.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's really good to know, because I think that some authors are wondering, like where else can I take my book? Where else can I take my ideas? And so it's really helpful for people to know what people are looking for. And maybe for those of you who are thinking about writing a book in that topic, this might be another option for you.
Yeah. We always, after each book fair, because that's where we hear, obviously we're presenting books, so we're getting real-time feedback on what is resonating and what's not. So typically after a book fair, we send to all of our participating authors a summary of the trends that we're seeing. So they can use that to either say, okay, well, I need to do something to differentiate my book more because it's not really in demand right now, or maybe I'm thinking about writing another book and I'm going to go this direction with it. So that's kind of some insider knowledge that we get from attending the book fairs that we're able to share with our clients when we get back.
Yeah, that sounds very helpful. And so you've mentioned you have a membership. What is included in your membership for if you decide to join DropCap Marketplace?
Yeah, so the DropCap membership includes a year-long listing on our marketplace. So that's the primary piece, where you're going to be able to have your book in front of all of our rights buyers within our platform, where it's doing that really targeted pitching. It also includes exhibiting your book at one of the book fairs. So this is actually a recent change that we've done, simply because we've seen how important it is to invest in that book fair presence. So now whenever you buy a membership with DropCap, it includes exhibition at one book fair. So right now we're gearing up for the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. I think our cutoff date is, I want to say like August 15th. So authors that are signing up for membership prior to August 15th, their book or books will be automatically included in our Frankfurt booth for in-person exhibition. And then beyond that, we have, office hours. We have ways to where we present, what's going on with your book. So seeing the activity and engagement data, really that's all being driven by our software platform that we've already built. And we do the evaluation. That can either be, you can do that on the front end, and then that's deducted from your sign up. Or if you sign up right away, we do an evaluation for you, just to give you an idea right from the get-go what other things you might need to add to your listing, what you might need to pursue to give your book the best chance. And then you're going to get a call with our head of marketing and partnerships to, again, just walk you through like what to expect, what suggestions do you have that I might want to do to give my book the best chance of success. So that's kind of high level what's included. And then we would separately, if we have an offer on the table, we would invite you into license or into representation with our in-house agency. You're not required to use our agency. If you have an agent in mind, we do have some people who already have an agent and are just using our platform as a tool to get their books in front of more people. So that side is kind of optional.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I know there are so many different options out there. What are the costs involved with this in terms of being listed, and then what would be some typical agency fees that you would be charging?
Yeah, so I'm just going to pull it up so I can make sure I have all the numbers right. Our member for one book, one listing is $9.99 a year. And again, that includes exhibition at one of the book fairs. We recently raised our prices because of the cost of the book fair. So are making an upfront investment to go to what is kind of an expensive endeavor is the international book fairs, but your book is 4 times more likely to be licensed based on that book fair presence. So we kind of made the decision, like, you're going to have to decide to make a little bit of an investment, but it's worth it to your success to have that book fair visibility. Then for the next level, 6 books on our marketplace, that is $29.99 for the year. 12 books is $49.99 for the year. And again, that number is based on our book fair space that we use. And then we can go above 12 books. We have publishers that have 50, a couple hundred books or more, and that's custom pricing.
Yeah. So for an author that has multiple books, what would you suggest they do to get started? Or, how would they choose maybe like the best book, or where would be a good place to start?
Yeah, so I would start with an evaluation. Okay. So that is the best way to start. That is, like I mentioned, $35. We really just want to be able to, before you make a commitment, give you feedback on the book or books. So when you have multiple books, we can do an evaluation on one of them, and then kind of a catalog level overview of how we think you should proceed. You'll have a call with someone from our team so that we can talk you through what your options might be. And yeah, we certainly have authors who start with just one book and then upgrade later. Especially as we get closer to the book fair, there's a lot of interest in going, and our space is limited. So I definitely encourage you to just do the evaluation, talk with our team first, and we'll help guide you into kind of the best path forward, whether that's starting with just one book or starting with your full list.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a really good plan. I love the evaluation piece because I think that really helps authors understand whether or not this is going to be a fit for them and what the best path moving forward is. So do you have any other tips or thoughts on foreign rights that you wish authors would ask and they don't ask until it's too late?
I will say a couple things. It's very difficult sometimes as an independent author to give up control of your book. So that would be something that I would want authors to understand, is that when you're licensing your book, it's the project is being taken on by like a traditional publisher. So they are going to design a new cover for their market, and you're not going to have a say in that. just like a traditional author here in the US doesn't typically have a say in their cover. So for people who are used to being in control and DIYing everything, or using, a service that helps them create their book the way they want to, that can sometimes be a difficult transition. Same thing with your royalty rate is going to be much lower than what you are used to, because you're not putting any, you're not paying to produce the book, you are having it done for you. So that's kind of a bit of a transition that I like to just kind of warn authors about, because it's just so different from what an indie author is used to doing. But the idea is that once you do the license, it's no work for you. You put your book up, you look at the contract, and you're good to go. The publisher will do everything, and you're being paid. So from the perspective of traditional publishers, they love licensing because it's gravy money that they don't need to do any work for. They have an agent, or maybe they have like an in-house agent that goes out and gets these licenses, and then it's another publisher doing the production and marketing and selling. So it can be very lucrative, but you are giving up some creative control.
Yeah. That's all really good to know. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us and tell people about something they might be missing for their writing business. And but thank you so much. I really enjoyed having you. Is there anything else that you want to share before we leave?
Just our website, dropcap.com. Happy to, either if you want to start with an evaluation or send us a message with any questions, we're happy to help you.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for this week joining us. And I'm so happy that Lindsay got to join us. If you do have any follow-up questions or anything, please feel free to pose them in the comments, and I will share those. And certainly, if it's something that we can't help you with, I will message Lindsay and see what we can do to get you an answer. But I know that their website is very user-friendly, and you can get a lot of really good information. So thank you all, and we will see you all back next week.
Thanks.